Tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
They said the Malaysia Airline Flight 370 was lost forever to the depth of the Indian Ocean.
Since Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was lost somewhere in the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean.
They said nothing could survive down there. No signal, no trace, no hope. For over a decade, the world searched in vain.
MH370 is a mystery that can be solved.
Chasing silence across the waters. But in 2025, something finally responded.
And we begin tonight with Flight 370. The major new clue: was it deliberately brought down?
Buried beneath 4,000 meters of ocean pressure was a truth so precise, so deliberate, it shattered every theory ever told about Flight MH370. This massive, insane new discovery of MH370 changes everything. The vanishing point. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members, each unaware that they were about to become part of one of the most perplexing aviation mysteries in history. In the early minutes, the flight was uneventful. Passengers settled in, and crew members went about their duties, unaware of the storm about to unfold. The aircraft reached waypoint Igari, a critical navigational point at 1:19. It was here that MH370 made its final contact with Malaysian Air Traffic Control, an innocuous routine communication. At 1:21, the plane's transponder went silent. In less than 2 minutes, the aircraft's position had disappeared from civilian radar. What followed was an eerie stillness. No distress call, no emergency squawk, just silence. The airwaves remained eerily quiet. No screams, no panicked transmission, no indication of trouble. Within minutes, Flight MH370 vanished into the vastness of the sky.
With 239 people on board, simply vanish.
Seemingly swallowed by it, without a trace. The world was left in stunned disbelief, unsure of how a modern, technologically advanced airliner could simply vanish. In the hours that followed, speculation ran wild, but answers were nowhere to be found. As the days turned into weeks, the search began, spearheaded by a global coalition of nations, each scrambling to contribute resources, technology, and expertise. The search zone expanded from the Malaysian peninsula to the far reaches of the southern Indian Ocean, encompassing tens of thousands of square miles. Specialized underwater drones, towed sonar arrays, and autonomous vehicles combed the seabed for any sign of the wreckage, but found nothing but silence. No debris, no wreckage, no evidence of where the plane had gone. Theories bloomed like weeds, each as speculative as the last. Was it a mechanical failure? A catastrophic hijacking? A sudden medical emergency that incapacitated the crew? But as weeks turned into months, the official explanation remained elusive, and the haunting question lingered. Where was MH370? The seventh arc. Amid the growing uncertainty, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Inmarsat satellite data. While the plane had vanished from civilian radar, it had not disappeared entirely. The aircraft's satellite communication system had continued to send automatic handshakes with the satellite ground station, a seemingly innocent but crucial sequence of data exchanges that would eventually form the basis of the investigation. The Inmarsat team, poring over the data, identified 7 distinct handshakes between the aircraft and the satellite. These handshakes provided a potential path that the plane could have taken after it lost contact with air traffic control. Each ping was a small piece of a larger puzzle, allowing investigators to narrow down a possible crash site. It was the first concrete lead in the search for MH370, a vast arc across the southern Indian Ocean, spanning thousands of miles, yet offering little more than a suggestion of the plane's final moments. This trajectory, known as the seventh arc, became the focal point of the search. While the handshakes were a breakthrough, they left crucial questions unanswered. The information provided no insight into the exact location of the crash site, and no indication of the aircraft's altitude, speed, or condition when the last ping was sent. The search zone, calculated to be as large as 120,000 square kilometers, was vast and treacherous, a region where the ocean floor had never been fully mapped, let alone explored. With no black boxes, no wreckage, and no survivors, the search for MH370 entered a new phase. Every lead seemed to bring more questions than answers. The world watched as specialized equipment was deployed. Underwater drones, towed sonar arrays, and autonomous vehicles designed to map the ocean floor in search of the elusive wreckage. Yet, all they found were the relics of a bygone age: ancient shipwrecks, submerged ridges, and endless layers of deep ocean. The flight's final moments remained locked in the ocean's depths, with no tangible evidence to explain the aircraft's disappearance. Despite the mounting efforts, the question remained: why had a modern airliner in the age of advanced radar systems and satellite technology vanished without a trace? And why, despite all the searching, was there still no sign of its wreckage? No clue as to its final resting place? The world was left with only the haunting silence of the seventh arc and the growing realization that the search might be far from over. Drift and debris. In the summer of 2015, nearly a year after Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 had vanished, an unexpected breakthrough occurred. A flaperon, part of the aircraft's wing, was discovered on the shores of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean.
Helicopters today searching the shores of Reunion Island.
The item, coated in salt and barnacles, was a chilling confirmation that the aircraft had indeed gone down somewhere in the vast expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. But the discovery only raised more questions. Why had it taken so long for this evidence to surface? As months passed, more pieces of wreckage began to wash up along the coastline of the western Indian Ocean, Madagascar, Mozambique, and even South Africa. Each item seemed to confirm that MH370 had met its tragic fate in this remote region, but still, no one could explain where the bulk of the plane was. The ocean had reluctantly given up parts of the aircraft, but the rest remained elusive, lost beneath the surface. The initial search had covered thousands of square kilometers, yet it seemed to yield nothing of substantial significance. In response, a team of Australian oceanographers at CSIRO, Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, dove into the data, meticulously analyzing drift currents, buoy trajectories, and storm systems to better understand where MH370 might have ended up. Their models predicted that the wreckage could have traveled along specific currents, and they focused on recalculating the most likely location of the crash. Using this data, they narrowed down the search area to a specified coordinate, just slightly north of the original search zone. The information suggested a specific stretch of ocean near the Broken Ridge area, a notoriously rugged and deep section of the seafloor that had previously been deemed too dangerous and difficult to explore. In response to these findings, a second private search operation was launched in 2018, aimed at the coordinates the scientists had pinpointed. But once again, the search came up empty. Despite the cutting-edge technology and high hopes, there was no trace of the missing plane. It seemed as if MH370 had disappeared into thin air, its final resting place hidden within an ocean so vast and so deep that it could easily swallow a Boeing 777 without leaving a trace. The 2025 resurgence. But the mystery of MH370 was far from over. In March 2025, Malaysia announced a third and final expedition to search for the missing aircraft. This time, the operation would be led by Ocean Infinity, a private deep-sea exploration company equipped with state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and advanced sonar technology. Their focus was the Broken Ridge region, an area that had long been considered too perilous to thoroughly investigate. The seabed here was treacherous, littered with jagged ridges and deep crevices. However, technological advances in sonar scanning had made it possible to survey these rugged terrains more accurately than ever before. As the team deployed their AUVs into the depths of the ocean, they began to scan the seafloor with unprecedented precision. It was during these scans that the team noticed something strange. Among the jagged ridges and deep valleys of the seafloor, one particular area stood out. The sonar readings from this location were inconsistent with the surrounding geology. Instead of the expected echoes of rock and sediment, the sonar detected flat surfaces and symmetrical returns that suggested the presence of something unnatural, something that didn't belong in the natural seabed.
Indian Ocean that they're working in, it's extreme conditions, and there will be a lot of times simply cannot launch or recover the vehicle.
The reflections didn't match any typical geological formations. They were more akin to a man-made structure or object, the likes of which had never been seen in this part of the ocean. As the sonar data continued to reveal these unusual signals, the team's excitement grew. The anomalies seemed too perfect, too structured to be merely a natural feature of the seafloor. Something was hidden beneath the surface, something that might finally offer answers. Could this be the wreckage of MH370? Could the wreckage of the missing plane have been right under their noses all along, silently waiting to be discovered? This new data set marked the beginning of a resurgence in the search for MH370, a search that, despite years of fruitless effort, was now closer than ever to revealing the truth. But even as this new lead emerged, one question loomed large. Was this truly the missing aircraft, or was it something else entirely? The final chapter of MH370's mystery was about to unfold. Unusual echoes. The sonar imagery was unlike anything the team had ever encountered. Beneath the vast sediment layers at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, the sonar captured a cluster of rectangular voids, as though some unseen architect had placed them deliberately. This wasn't a natural formation, nor was it the random arrangement of seafloor rocks. The images revealed a precise, grid-like structure, stretching across the ocean floor with startling regularity. It was clear these formations had been shaped, organized, and constructed. But the question remained, how could something this structured exist at depths of 4,000 meters below the surface? The team, led by oceanographers and engineers, quickly theorized that this formation was artificial, not simply an anomaly of nature. The strange echoing patterns suggested it was a piece of technology, not a part of the ocean's natural geography. As theories swirled, the expedition crew, fueled by curiosity and disbelief, decided to deploy a submersible to investigate the site in greater detail. With the submersible descending into the trench, the ocean's pressure enveloped the vehicle, and its onboard sensors began to pick up startling anomalies. Metallic resonance reverberated through the submersible's hull, and strange magnetic disturbances rippled through the surrounding water column. The instruments showed inconsistent readings, anomalies that didn't fit the known patterns of the trench's usual geological composition. Something was down there, something that was out of place. And then, as the vehicle's powerful floodlights illuminated the trench floor, a shape began to emerge from the darkness. The faint silhouette of a circular fuselage, half buried in the sediment, came into view. It was a fragment, but its presence in the deepest part of the ocean was perplexing. What was this large, man-made structure doing here? The submersible's camera, mounted with high-definition imaging capabilities, confirmed what the sonar had only hinted at. The footage revealed the unmistakable curvature of a fuselage, an eerie sight that sent a shiver through the crew. This wasn't a shipwreck or some odd military debris. It was unmistakably the remnants of a commercial airliner. The midsection of a Boeing 777, its outline clearly defined, was embedded in the ocean floor, its colors still visible despite decades underwater. The tail section was missing, torn away, and the cockpit was gone, stripped of its contents, likely disintegrated by the ocean's relentless pressures. Salt water had chipped away any painted reference to the plane's name or company of origin. However, the fuselage windows and remnants of a familiar livery left little doubt. This could very well be the wreckage of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 9MMRO. Around the wreckage, fragments of carbon composite paneling scattered like confetti in the deep blue, caught in the current's slow drag. Larger pieces of debris, including an engine cowling and what appeared to be parts of the landing gear, were visible. Some pieces were heavily corroded by the salt water, but others still bore faint markings and serial numbers. Matching these with earlier pieces found on Reunion Island and Mozambique, the team had the confirmation they had been hoping for but dreading. The wreckage was more than 70% likely to belong to the missing aircraft.
The missing Malaysia Airlines flight, 2 pieces of debris, are highly likely to have come from that plane.
But it wasn't just the identification of the wreckage that stunned the team. It was its condition. Despite being submerged for over a decade, the fuselage, while damaged, remained relatively intact. The fact that the debris had remained in such a state suggested something extraordinary about the way it had ended up at such a great depth, far from the flight's original flight path. What had caused the plane to travel to this remote location? And why had it remained hidden for so long? The implications were staggering. This wasn't just the discovery of a plane, it was the unearthing of a mystery that had puzzled the world for years. And now, with the evidence before them, the team had to confront the unthinkable. The ocean had finally revealed its secrets, but the answers it held were more complex and unsettling than anyone could have imagined. This changes everything. The first clue came in the form of the aircraft's unusual damage pattern. It was not the catastrophic high-speed impact many had expected, but rather something far more perplexing. The damage indicated a shallow glide descent, with the plane appearing to lose altitude gradually rather than plummeting straight down. The wings were sheared off not from a downward impact but from a lateral torque, suggesting the aircraft was in a controlled descent, not a free fall. But it was the cargo bay door that truly changed everything. Unlike any typical crash, where doors would remain firmly shut or damaged by violent impact, the cargo door had been opened from the inside. This detail shifted the narrative entirely. It was now clear. Someone had control of the aircraft during the descent, someone who had the ability and intent to open the cargo bay door. This discovery led to a chilling realization. The idea of an accident, a simple mechanical failure, or random hijacking, began to feel far too simplistic. Even if this plane ended up not being MH370, the evidence showed that its disappearance was anything but an accident. There was now a clear indication that this plane's descent might have been planned, deliberate, and executed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. This was shocking. A controlled descent, a deliberate action taken to open the cargo door. Every piece of the puzzle seemed to lead to a disturbing possibility. MH370's disappearance could have been intentional. The question now was, who had control and what was their plan? The black box mystery. As investigators dove deeper into the wreckage, they uncovered more troubling signs. Amid the twisted frames and scattered instruments, the flight data recorders, the critical black boxes that hold the key to understanding what happened, were conspicuously absent from their expected locations. Unlike typical crash scenarios where the black boxes might be damaged beyond recognition, these had been removed. But it was not a haphazard removal. The bolts had been unscrewed, as if someone had intentionally taken the time to remove them, deliberately and methodically. This discovery reignited the most unsettling theory. The disappearance of MH370 might not have been the result of mechanical failure, not a random accident, but a calculated, intentional act. The black boxes, usually the most crucial evidence in any aviation mystery, had been taken out, perhaps to conceal the truth. Yet the investigation wasn't over. While combing through deep-sea sediment around the wreckage site, a team of researchers stumbled upon an unexpected find: a data drive, badly degraded, but still recoverable. This piece of technology was unlike anything found at the crash site before. French and U.S. specialists, brought in from the National Transportation Safety Board, worked tirelessly to recover any data it might hold. The findings were nothing short of mind-blowing. What they discovered from the drive was so chilling, so unexpected, that it left even the most seasoned experts speechless. The details of the recovery remained classified, but the implications were undeniable. The truth about MH370 might not be what anyone thought it was, and this new discovery could very well change the entire narrative of one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. The expedition team made an unexpected discovery when they recovered the damaged data drive from the wreckage. Among the fragmented files were traces of airline simulation software, an unsettling finding that would turn everything the world thought they knew about Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 on its head. The files contained an exact replica of the flight profile, from Kuala Lumpur to waypoint Igari, the point at which the aircraft made its final contact with air traffic control. It followed a precise course that then shifted westward before entering a fuel-optimized glide path toward the 7th arc, the very trajectory that led to the crash site. The timestamp on the files was revealing: February 2014, just a month before the plane disappeared. For years, critics and investigators had speculated about a pilot simulation found on the captain's home computer, hinting at possible premeditation. This new discovery, however, suggested something more sinister. The data wasn't found just in the captain's private space. It was found on the plane itself, hidden deep within the wreckage. The question now loomed: was this data planted, or had someone inside the flight crew orchestrated the flight path, preparing the aircraft for an unknown mission before it ever took off? The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a simulation of a flight path, it was a precise, fuel-optimized trajectory designed to take the aircraft into one of the most remote regions of the world, a place where it could disappear without a trace. Who could have created such a file, and why? Was it meant to be discovered, or was it a deliberate attempt to leave behind a breadcrumb trail for investigators to follow? The potential answers only deepen the mystery. The drive was damaged, and while some of the files were corrupted, a small portion remained intact. The team worked tirelessly to recover every possible detail, each file hinting at something darker beneath the surface. The software used was capable of simulating more than just the aircraft's flight. It was capable of navigating it through the most challenging scenarios, accounting for fuel consumption, weather patterns, and even emergency landings in unknown territories. What did this say about the nature of the flight and the intention behind its final course? For years, the world had speculated about the possibility of the flight being hijacked or diverted by external forces. But now it seemed as though someone on board, possibly even one of the flight crew, had been meticulously planning the plane's final journey. The data didn't lie, but what was it trying to tell us? The last descent. As the wreckage was carefully studied, new layers of understanding emerged about the true nature of the flight's disappearance. The discovery of the data drive had opened the door to a series of revelations that would take years to fully explore, but one thing was already clear: the official narrative was incomplete. If this was truly MH370, then the plane did not simply vanish due to mechanical failure or an unexplained malfunction. It was flown, it was guided, and someone had intentionally hidden it beneath miles of ocean. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a carefully calculated disappearance, one that involved manipulation from within the cockpit, or perhaps by someone who had infiltrated it. The questions now were endless. Why simulate the route? Who planted the data? And what was the intended purpose behind it? The most chilling revelation was that the black boxes were not recovered, and the plane's true descent had been concealed for more than a decade. Despite years of effort, the mystery of MH370 remained far from solved. With every new discovery came more questions, and with every answer came the realization that there were still more truths buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The wreckage might have been located, but the full scope of the tragedy was far from understood. The final descent was more than a flight path. It was the unraveling of a puzzle that had been meticulously crafted, hidden, and almost forgotten. Now, the world was listening, and the ocean had finally started to speak. But the silence that followed was only a reminder that the deepest mysteries often take the longest to reveal. If someone planned this descent and someone erased the data, who was really in control of flight MH370? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video with us, and catch you in the next one.